Welcome to our Research Like a Pro question and answers series, How to Find Land and Tax Records. This comes from the question, I know that land and tax research could be helpful in my research, but I don't know how to find the records. Where do I start? Well, this is such a great question. So I'm excited to talk about this because land and tax records are some of my favorites. So here are the basics. You can start with the Family Search Wiki to give you some ideas of where to go. Then the Family Search Catalog is your best friend in giving you some specific digitized records. And then there are those online databases such as Ancestry, MyHeritage, US GenWeb. We're not going to really talk about those because those are fairly easy to find when you just do Google searches. And then there's archives and courthouses. So we're going to touch on some of these others that are maybe a little bit more difficult. So let's start off with land records and just do a quick review of land records because we need to know what kind of land records we're really looking for. So if it's a state land state, and these are the original colonies plus a couple extra that we'll look at in a minute, this is usually along the eastern seaboard. And so it could be the first title to the land could have been either colonial times or when the states began giving land. After the revolution and we began having states, they could have granted the land. Now, there are many, many states in the West and Midwest, which are federal land states. And so the first title to land was a federal land patent. And then after that original patent was given out, grant or patent, whatever the term is, anything after that is a deed. So after the original grantor was given land by the federal government or the state, then if he sold it, that would be a deed, and those are on the county level. So if you have not heard this term before of state versus federal land states, here are the state land states here. And also Texas and Hawaii are state land states because they entered the United States and they had already been giving out their land. And then the federal land states are all the rest here in blue and Alaska. And so these are the ones that have township sections and ranges for the description. And then the state land states are more meets and bounds. So you'll need to learn about your specific state where you are trying to find the land, and then you can start figuring out where the records are. So for federal land records, there's just one place that you can start with, and it's pretty easy to use. It's the Bureau of Land Management General Land Office Records. Just a couple tips. When you go to this website, you'll be looking at land patents, and you'll be able to see an image of the final patent that was given. And just know that they don't search spelling variants. So you've got to try a variety of spellings because it's not going to pick up anything that's a different spelling than you usually use. And you can search by your state, county, and surnames. So for instance, when I searched for Arkansas plus Izard, County plus Klein, I found a list of all the people that were patenting land, and you'll see they were all about the same year, 1844 through 1849, 1850. And when I mapped those lands, they were all within a pretty close proximity to each other. So I am currently researching these people to see how they relate to my research subject, clumsy Klein. So that's federal land. Now, state land states, you have to figure out where those records are kept. And a good way to figure that out is just to go to the Family Search Research Wiki. And if you just put in your state plus land and property, you'll come to a page where it will give you a lot of really good information about what kind of land was available when they started granting the land, what kind of records are out there, and then you'll get some links. So you'll have different links because each state archive will have their own special way for you to get to the land records. But for instance, here we have North Carolina land grant images and data. And when we click that, we can see that there is a lot to this wonderful website, but you can put in your surname, and then you can see there are just thousands and thousands of images here to start looking at. So this is a great website. And I did indeed find for my Eisenhower branch of the family a nice land grant, an original land grant. It was from the North Carolina state by this time, 1792. And it's my John Eisenhower on Lyle Creek. And so here you can see that. Now, I wanted to know if John sold that land. So I would be looking for deeds in Lincoln County, North Carolina. And so a really great way to see if there are some deeds for an ancestor, you would go to the county and the state. One tip here is on the place search. This is the family search catalog. Do not put in county or else it will say no results. So you just put in your actual county. Don't put in the word county. And then you select the correct county. And there will be several that will pop up perhaps, especially for Lincoln. There's a lot of states that have Lincoln County. And then you just click search and it will take you to the main search page for that county. You can see here all the different records that the Family Search Library has, and many, many of these are digitized and now online. And so if we go down to land and property, there's some indexes, and then there's a basic section with 17 record types, 17 collections. So when you look at this, you may be confused and wonder out of all of these, what in the world would I use first? Well, it depends on where you're at. If you're on site at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, you can start with an abstract where an individual person has gone through the original records and created a derivative record. They've created a book where they've listed all the people's names and the basic information. And so you can see here we have a lot of abstracts. The author is an Albert Bruce Pruitt. But if we're looking at these online, we want to see if we can find originals. And we can see that the author, Lincoln County Register of Deeds, these would be originals. So you're looking for an entry where the author is the county, and then you would click on that. And we can see there are actually a few different collections here where the author is the county, or here's one where it's the state superior court. So lots of things to look at. But I want to look at these basic deeds. When I click into that, I have a long list, and this is just the beginning. And so when you are presented with a list like this, always look for an index. And some counties will have an index where they've gone through all the deeds and created a nice index. You still have to browse through the index, but it is alphabetical. And sometimes it's by year. You just have to look and see how it's organized and then go to work trying to find your person in there. So here are all the different indexes. And then once you find the volume, then you can go down and click on the appropriate microfilm number down here. So one tip is to keep track of this in your research log. So here you can see the hits that I had when I was doing the search in the grantor index for Eisenhower's. And I put in the year, the person granting, the grantor, and the grantee who was buying the land. And I have the volume and the page number. So that is going to be my guide when I want to go and find the actual record. So I record all those in my research log before I even start doing the search for the original deed. And you can see I have a citation for that. So I know where I was looking. It was the index to real estate conveyance grantors. Now, when I go to the appropriate film, then I will see a bunch of images, and this is an instance where you browse the digitized microfilm. I always like to look at the beginning to make sure I am in the right place and it's matching up with what I put in my research log. And so in this case, I am supposed to be looking in volume 29. And this is the appropriate year, 1819 to 21. So that looks good. And now I just have to skip ahead to the right page. And in this case, I am looking for page 214. So, you can skip a few images ahead and get where you need to be until you find it. And so here's the actual deed. And you can see in my citation, I've got volume 29, page 214, which correlates here. And then I like to put in the citation the image number. So someone else could go to this film and then they could easily find this. So That is just a little review of what a deed is and how to find the deeds in the Family Search Catalog. And when you do come to these, remember to record everything in a citation and in your research log. Now let's look at tax records, which are really similar to locating. So there's some typical US tax types. There's the head or poll tax, where everybody of a certain age, every male of a certain age was to be noted, was to pay this tax. There's real property tax. Those are people who owned land, had to pay taxes on the land. And then there were personal property taxes. So you had to pay on your animals. If you had enslaved people on your property, you had paid taxes on them. And that can be a really great way to do research on families that were enslaved. And so we've got different kinds of taxes. They're very valuable for our research, so we want to find them. Now, often I will start at the county level. And so in our example of Lincoln County, North Carolina, when I went to Lincoln County and I scrolled past the property, the land and property, and went all the way down to taxation, I saw that, yep, there are tax lists. Again, Lincoln County is the author, the creator. But look at this. Here's a derivative. Here's an abstract that the same Albert Bruce Pruitt has put together. So that's neat. He's done a lot of work there in Lincoln County. But I want to look at the actual tax lists and see the original lists. When I click into that, I get some notes. And I like to study those notes just to learn a little bit more. And here I see which tax lists are available in this collection. And I can see there are some gaps in years. And so that will help me just to understand the records. Perhaps this is it. This is all that exists now. Or maybe some of these others have been found or in other places. So it'd be worth checking. So I see that they are all together. This is one big, huge collection of tax lists for basically 100 years. So when I get into the actual records, I've got to understand the organization. And what I will often do is skip ahead 50 pages, 100 pages, or images just to see where I am in the film and what year we're on. And so in this case, I was trying to find 1819. And so I skipped until I got to image 321. And so you can begin to understand how everything is organized and get to your place fairly quickly once you understand how things are arranged. Now, just know that with tax lists, they are often have several districts in an area. And so maybe they have 3 districts for the county for that year. And so you'll need to search each district for each year for your people. And so don't just search the first district and then leave it at that. Make sure you're checking all of them. They're generally alphabetical, so that makes it easier. You can just find the right letter and then you're good to go. And in this example, here are the Eisenhowers. So I found all sorts of good tax records for the Eisenhowers, and many of them were being taxed for land on Lyles Creek, which matches up with that original land grant from North Carolina. All right, now let's look at an example in Arkansas. So this is Izard County, Arkansas. And this was a little different because when I went to the county page and looked at taxation, I did not see exactly what I wanted. I wanted tax records pre-1850. So I saw some derivatives here, which is fine. You know, that's the year I want, but it's not originals. And the originals, it doesn't look like start within the county until 1887, which is too late. So, looking at this book, which was at the Family History Library, I did find some entries for my John Klein, listed here as clean, but I really wanted to see the original. And you'll see in this text abstract, it's alphabetical. And so the years are all mixed up. I couldn't really see contemporaries very easily in this book. And I wondered if there was more in an original. But where are the originals? So in this case, I had to go to the state level. So when I went to the Family Search Catalog and just did a keyword search for Arkansas taxation, or you could go to place and do Arkansas and then select taxation, I found that all the Arkansas tax records are on the state level and they're 1821 to 1884, and the author is the state auditor of Arkansas. So all the tax lists were sent to the state, which was very providential because Izard County was burned The courthouse burned in 1870 and many, many records were lost, but these tax lists survived because they weren't in the courthouse anymore. So when I click into this, I find that all the different counties are here. And so I just have to scroll down and find Izard County. It's in the same microfilm collection as Independence County. So I know that Independence is going to be first and Izard second. So you can pay attention to this and see how the microfilming might have been organized. And when I click on the little camera icon, I have a lot of microfilm, like 1,000 images. So one of the tips is to look for the black squares, which means a break in the microfilm, a different collection. And so by the time I found number 5, I was finally at Izard County and I knew this is where I needed to be. So then I like to look at the first few images to get some clues about what's going on in this collection. And so here I see it's Izard 1839, and I see that they have listed the original owners of the land for taxes and then the present owners of all property. Now I had to scroll ahead a few pages to finally find one that wasn't cut off and see that this really was original. So you'll often have to do that, scroll back and forth to try to understand the headings. Sometimes you can read the headings better than on other pages. So make use of the entire microfilm. Now, notice that this was actually a collection where they did each page twice. So the first page, there's John Klein and John C. Klein, and this has the first half of the tax list. But then the second microfilming, they did the whole page, and we have all of the personal property over here. First, we just had the land and then the poll tax here. So be sure you're scrolling through, click around, make sure you are really getting all the details out of the tax records you can. And every county is different, every state is different, but hopefully this gave you a little bit of an overview of what you can find. And then finally, if you don't have anything digitized, you can turn to the courthouse and archives. So not all tax records are going to be on Family Search or on Ancestry or on a state archive page. So you may have to contact the courthouse or a state archive in person, historical and genealogical societies or museums. So don't give up for your tax and land records. Just do your due diligence and see if you can do some reasonably exhaustive research to find those records that will give you so much help in your research. Thank you.